Welcome viewers, welcome back to Media Track episode 12. With me as usual is Devika Sequeira, who will take us to the lead story.
Thanks, Rico. So this week I'd like to focus on a story that I feel didn't get as much attention as it deserved. It is about the state looking to change CRZ 2011, that's the Coastal Regulation Zone 2011 rules, to redraw the high tide line. Now, one of the arguments in this given by the Minister for Environment, that is Nilesh Cabral, he says that Goa, which has 3,704 square kilometers, has only 257 square kilometer areas for development, and this isn't enough. And according to him, the high tide line has shifted dramatically over the years. One of the reasons, he says, it has moved landward, and in the process Goa has lost 400 square kilometers for development. One of the reasons, he says, is the shifting bunds, etc., etc. Now, damage. He doesn't quite specify exactly what it is in the thing, but they're making a case before the Ministry of Environment and Forests at the center. And he was in fact flying out on, it was on the same day that his flight developed some snag and they had to return, etc. That might be some kind of, providential sign or whatever. But anyway, what is the kind of damage this could do to Goa? Because the government is talking of drawing a straight high tide line, which to me sounds quite suspicious in a way. And
because the coastline is not straight enough.
Exactly, the coastline is not straight, and he says that the high tide line shouldn't come into the Khazan areas. Now, one very interesting reaction has come, in fact, from all the commercial bodies, that is the business bodies. One of them is CII. Then you have the Goa Chamber of Commerce. They've all reacted, and their reaction is actually, they're saying that the government would be ill-advised to reduce the area under coastal regulation zone, and as it would trigger ecological damage. This reaction came in the Navin Times, and this was said by the Goa Chamber of Commerce, the chairman, I believe, and then you have Damodar Kochar, president of Verna Industrial Estate, saying that the shrinking CRZ land would be suicidal for the state, while Lalit Saraswat, chairman of CII Goa, said that there are ways to make sure that land for industry is sustainable. So
this
they themselves,
very interesting, no? Because industry is taking a stand, and actually you have issues where Goa would face more of sea erosion with extreme climate events and things like that.
That's
we are already
true.
seeing the coast being eroded in parts.
Yeah, that's true. And so this story comes at the same time that Goa is trying to confirm the Goa Coastal Zone Management Plan, which is seeing so much confusion because all the panchayats are against, the government going against what they want for the plan.
True. Sometimes we are searching out for good news because there's so much bad news in the papers, but today, this time, even the economy, we have had some bad stories on that front. One is which Newton Sequeira wrote in the Times of India, and it says, desperate hoteliers slash prices and gear up for the worst season in years, in that sense. So that's on the tourism front.
Yeah.
The other story that has come out, it was in Navin Times by Shoma Patnaik, who says that Goa is struggling to rein in the rising fiscal deficit. Behind all these technical terms, it actually means bad news in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. But to give you a little more context on the tourism story, Rico, there was an accompanying piece in the Times of India which says that there's going to be more pain in the tourism industry after the whole episode of Thomas Cook, and they're expecting another charter major, that is TUI. They might also stop coming. So that's
TUI
why
is very old, no? In the 80s, they used to talk about touristic
that's
union
true.
international. And
Yeah, that's true. So they bring they fly in three times a week to Goa. So that's quite a few tourists and
Germany,
no, from the UK.
UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also this problem that because the charters are pulling out, the regular flights are just hiking up the rates. So that's going to make things even worse for the tourism industry.
And then add to the issue recently, because of the overflying issue over Pakistan, because of
Yeah.
the conflict that we've had with them and misunderstandings. So they banned overflights, and that also hiked the rates and the flying time to Europe in some way.
Yeah, one of the reasons for TUI, in fact, withdrawing is because they're not getting the slots they normally got, and the airport runway is going to be closed on Saturday, so that will only make things worse. So that was one of the reasons. But I feel, personally, that maybe this is a good time for Goa to sort of take a look at where the tourism industry is headed and bring in some changes and make things better. In a way, revamp totally.
Tourism also has a lifespan and a kind of interest span. No? For a few years it builds up and then it peaks. There's a lot of hype. It kind of takes off. And then it comes into that negative cycle where people are really losing interest in a destination and it's becoming outdated and out-fashioned. And another story on the economy that caught my eye was that Cipla stock prices were affected because this US FDA, United States FDA, issued some observation on their Goa facility. Now, actually, the pharma sector in Goa has been one of its little noticed success stories, and it has been doing pretty well all this time.
Yeah.
There have been glitches and problems where, certain pharmaceutical units have been coming under pressure because of import hurdles and, countries saying that the facilities are not up to the mark. I don't know how much that is genuine and how much it's just a trade war because these are non-price barriers also.
Yeah, but there's one connection Cipla has, which Bill Clinton had been here to visit the Cipla plant in Goa, and the reason. Obviously, as the media, we rushed there and we got talking to him. And the reason he was coming here is to get drugs for HIV, which are much, much cheaper. And these were going straight, through his foundation, they were going straight to Africa. Where it is extremely expensive.
So actually I feel, Devika, that the pharma sector is one of Goa's hidden secrets, and it has done a lot, but it doesn't get the credit it deserves. Just like how among sports, chess is the game where we are producing world champions, and we don't seem to be acknowledging or even recognizing that fact. So sometimes this is my criticism, that we in the media have blind spots which we don't notice things too well.
Well, I'd like to get back to the Minister Nilesh Kabral, who's been in the news this past week, and he's been making the headlines obviously because of the power consumption and the unpaid bills, and for a change he's been targeting the government, and he says that the power department is owed crores by the government, that is 5.85 crore by the Panjim Municipal, that is CCP, Corporation of the City of Panaji, and 30 crore is owed to the power department by the PWD ministry.
This is a strange situation where the government owns the government money.
Yeah, and interestingly, just look at his statements. He says that he's taken a very tough stance, and so that is on Wednesday this week he switched off the lights in the Panjim municipality, and he threw it in. There was a complete blackout there, and so he said that defaulters will be punished. And the electricity department's 30 crores, if they don't pay up by next year, March, he says he will disconnect the power to the OPA plant. So he says, let the people of Panjim and Ponda feel the pinch. Maybe then the government will pay up his bills. So he's been making these statements, like he says, the tariff is for everybody, whether it is the government body or a private entity. Whoever uses power has to pay. As a minister, it is my duty to recover dues. Now, the other interesting fact is that the Pauskar, who is the PWD minister, is contesting this. He says this is an inflated bill. we don't owe the power department that much money. But Nilesh Cabral says no, it's not true, because it has taken him 9 months to come up with these figures, and he says he has looked at all the tabulation of the of their dues, etc. So this is where we are at. Let's see how the Chief Minister resolves this problem.
Another story which caught my eye was about the sugarcane farmers and their situation in the plantation areas. So as our viewers would know, we have the single plant in Goa making sugar. That's the Sanjeevani Sugar Cooperative at Darbandora. And the problem is that the farmers say that they have been affected by the conflicting statements of the different ministers on starting of the plant and keeping it active, keeping it going. So they are not sure whether they should be planting the crop or not. So this report by Suraj Kaisuekar in the Times of India,
yeah,
I found it quite interesting because of the details and the richness of the story that he brings out. And he says that the farmers are perplexed by the conflicting statements from Corporation Minister Govind Gaude on starting production at the state's lone sugar factory, the Sanjeevani Cooperative Sugar Factory at Darbandora. So they are demanding that the government should clarify. The farmers are demanding whether the government plans to run the factory or not.
okay.
And added to it, he says that he cites certain cases of farmers who have entered the field. There is, for example, one person whose name is Velip, who is Prasad Velip, who is an agriculture diploma holder from the Konkan Krishi Vidyapit Dapoli, that's the Maharashtra college. And he says he quotes his farmer saying, Mr. Velip saying, in 2013 I returned to Goa on leaving my job in the US Army to do agriculture in Goa, but the situation has changed for the last 3 years. I took a loan of 50 lakhs,
wow.
these large areas. And for agriculture, but in these conditions what can I do?
Yeah.
So like sometimes we as I always say, the newspapers, I appreciate the fact that they look at these slow moving stories which are more difficult to tell.
Yeah, but there's also the fact, Rico, because as the story in the Herald, there's also the fact that the government just makes these statements, it starts something and it never gets going with it. There is also the story in Herald about Tuain farmers, that is Tuain at Mandre, and they've lost their land to this electronic city project in 2014. It was taken over by the government. The project hasn't got going, and they haven't been able to cultivate the land. And Parsekar, who was, chief minister, etc., he says that he knows the case. The land, in fact, went back to the government. There's a dispute over who actually owns this land. Is it the farmers? Have they got a right to it or not? But the fact is they were cultivating the land, and now it's just lying, with a whole lot of debris dumped on it.
So sometimes we, there's a slip between the cup and the lip, and it's very costly for all the people who are caught in between in that sense. No?
Absolutely.
One positive story that I came across, I don't know how we'll see it, is about this, it's in this website called afaqs.com, and it's about the utopia and reality of shifting work to Goa. So there's this lady who is into photography and things like that, and she came, typical story, she came on a work assignment here. She liked the place, the sunset, and stayed on, and she set up place, and she's running a place called the Little Anarchy Films.
Okay.
After visiting Goa 8 years ago while shooting films for a luxury bike brand, and I was raised in Delhi, she said, the Goan sunsets took my breath away, and cheap beer probably didn't hurt in that sense. So AFAX is this. It was earlier called Agency Facts. I was just checking up because it has some of these offbeat stories. It's an online portal known for publishing information and news on the marketing, advertising and media professionals of India.
Okay, but how has her experience been, good or bad?
So she says she can manage. It's been quite good. I'm saying, I always caution my friends who are, gung-ho about living in Goa. I say, like, holidaying in Goa is one thing and living here is a totally different thing.
Absolutely.
Because once you run into, your cyber problems, your internet problems, telephone problems, transport problems, then it becomes difficult. But, I think the challenge for our young people is also to find those sectors which pay them decently. Maybe they do part of their work for a market outside Goa which pays them better.
Yeah.
And they can, have the benefits of living on, if it is possible in some fields at least.
Yeah. So we come now to the story which is, which affects everybody and which should have come into effect a long time ago. It's the ban on single-use plastic which got going on 2nd October. And the Chief Minister has said that, we can't do it overnight and it'll be a slow thing. And Michael Lobo, who is the Minister, he's for Science and Technology, he says the ban is only on plastic bags of 50 microns. But whether it will actually be implemented is another thing, because if you go to the market or you go to a shop, you still see people being given plastic bags, and you argue with them and they say, but they're asking, the customer asks for it. But in this story, I'd like to bring the fact of another story that the Times brought out. It talks about this whole ODF campaign, that's the open defecation free campaign, which has been claimed to be a big success. And the Times story exposes how it is not a success even in Goa. And it talks of shifting goalposts, fudging numbers behind Goa's ODF status. So apparently when Parikar was Chief Minister, he had said that we would need 60,000 toilets. And the current Chief Minister has brought that number down to 17,150. So, this is supposed, all the government officials have said this is completely inadequate, it's not going to work. And even places that have been given this ODF tag, they're saying that they were actually coerced to say that it is ODF rather. There was a story which has been going on for a while. It was about a baby being fed adulterated or milk laced with tobacco in a daycare center in Ponda, and it has been proved by the FDA, that is the Food and Drugs Department, that it was indeed laced with tobacco. Now the thing is, of course, the woman who was looking after the place, she has been arrested and she's been denied bail. But the fact is, a small report that came today, that the daycare center was not even registered with the Department of Women and Child Development. Now this raises serious questions, because it has been known in the past and from so many experiences that a lot of these places are badly run. Children are abused at these daycare centers and homes, and also one should take such a story quite seriously, I think.
And apparently they were feeding this kid tobacco just to avoid her from crying or something.
Yes, to put them to sleep,
put
the children to sleep. If you put some kind
really
of tobacco ingested stuff in the milk, it makes the children very sleepy.
Sometimes you don't even know where these ideas come from. No? On another level, I got an email the other day. This is a really positive sunshine story about Bookworm Trust having their library in Aldona village. So they had all these pictures which mentioned, I think the library is named after the late Alban Kuta, husband of Dr. Maria Aurora Kuto. So they have, and that's his village, Aldona is his village. So they've set it up there, it's running well, and you can go to the place, you can meet the librarian and he'll give you books, and also they have a nice blog where they send out this message. And I think somehow the strength of the Goan village has been its ability to reinvent itself, to undertake community action. While we are very gossipy and very nasty at another level, the people can also be nice.
Yeah.
So I really like that story, and I plan to visit and see what it's all about.
Well, Rico, I like to soup up things a bit with not your favorite subject and talk about politics a bit. And there were these 2-3 stories that I found extremely interesting. One is how, Counte, Rohan Counte, who used to be a minister as part of, he's an independent MLA, he was part of the BJP government. He helped, he was one of the 6 that helped the BJP come to power. And now you see the BJP has turned against him in Porvorim and they've been targeting him. So it started with them taking away the Sarpanch, who was his right-hand man, a man called Sukor Sarpanch, a man called Sandeep Vazrankar, and they managed to take the full panchayat, elected panchayat along with them. So things are hotting up once again, and I think we are a little more than midway through the term. then there was this other very interesting report I saw which talked about Girish Chodankar of Congress, the PCC president of the Congress, saying that the rift between him and Vijay there's nothing personal about it, and they shared a days for some function or the other. He says this is all politics. But the story that was even more interesting is Subramaniam Swamy, the BJP leader who came to Goa just this week, and he said that he sort of shot out a warning to imported MLAs, you know, the 10 Congress MLAs who defected, and he says that they better be warned to toe the party line, because he says the move to take them in was a temporary measure, and a disciplined party like the BJP will not tolerate those who behave the way they did in their previous party. So one other little statement from him, he said that Goa is strategically an intellectual state and the BJP cannot afford to lose it. Now there was some reaction from the GSM, that is Goa Suraksha Manch, and Velinkar, who was the former RSS chief, and he said that, you know, these 10 Congress defectors, be warned, this is how the BJP uses people and just discards them.
So to shift again back to politics, Devika, just a small quiz. How many Goan MPs are there in the House of Commons?
In the House of Commons, I would think at least 5.
No, not 5. Close. No? Close. 3.
3, is it?
Keith his sister Valerie.
Right.
And you know, just the other day I was searching for Suella Fernandes.
Yeah.
But Suella Fernandes has become Suella Braverman. I guess she's married now.
Yeah.
And very interesting, her father was from Goa and her mother is from Mauritius.
Okay.
In that sense.
Okay.
But apart from that, there are at least 2 more.
There was another one very Goan sounding. She's the one who filed the case for Brexit. Isn't she from Goa?
Yes, I'm coming to that. Okay, yeah. So there are 2 more who are connected to Goa but not Goan. So the one you're referring to is Francis Gertrude Claire D'Souza.
Okay.
Baroness D'Souza.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, she was married to a Goan. No, I'm talking of another one who filed a recent case in the Brexit.
I see. No,
yeah.
No, I'm not aware
I'm quite sure she's also Goan.
So the first 3 were from the House of Commons, and Lady Baroness D'Souza is actually from the House of Lords. She's got caught up in some controversy over spending and billing and something of that sort. But the 5th person who is connected to Goa is from the House of Commons again, John MacDonald, who is actually very close to the possible Labour Prime Minister of Britain if and when it happens. Okay. And he has been serving as an MP for the Hayes and Hallington constituency since 1997.
But how is he connected to Goa?
He is married to a Goan.
I see. Okay,
and she is a Pinto from Moira and things like that.
Okay.
And they have a kid together, and So he is actually serving as the shadow chancellor of the Exchequer since 2015.
Okay, so he's close to Corbyn.
Yeah,
okay.
Very close to Corbyn. But I don't know what's the politics, whether they were, some disagreement between the two.
I see. Okay. Well, this it's been one of the worst. Either worst or best, whichever way you look at it.
Can't be best. It's too much.
Yeah.
When it rains, it pours.
The rains have been the heaviest rains in 20 years, that is for Goa. So we've had 33% surplus rain, and unbelievably it has rained 155 inches when the normal is 117.
That's 1.5 meters of rain across the full state.
Yes, that's like, getting 1/3 of our rainfall in surplus. 1/3 of what it normally rains. And there was another statistic that quite stumped me, is that it was the heaviest monsoon in India in September in 102 years. So
we could feel it also, no? Devika, in that
absolutely.
Sense. There was no doubt about it. In this connection, Gauri Malkarnekar had a very interesting report where she said the title of the report was Deteriorating Water Quality, a Major Concern. So according to the report, while water, is not a problem because Goa has its water at shallow levels. With so much rain, obviously we are going to, but the quality of the water is an issue, She quotes this Geological Society of India's meeting in Goa in last Sunday or so, where a hydrogeologist called Manoj Ibrampur
Okay.
had to say that the quality of water is deteriorating mainly due to biological contamination. The Goa State Pollution Control Board studies have already found fecal coliform in all the rivers, Ibrampurkar said.
Okay, okay.
So you know, we have water, but the quality is an issue. We have a lot of water, but yeah.
You know, Rico, mining has always been in the eye of a storm for pollution, etc. But we've never looked at sand mining, and it's been going on, you know, very, very heavily in Perne, and the residents of Perne are blaming the authorities for turning a blind eye. And it happens all down the river. If you go across the Mandovi to the other side, you'll see heavy sand mining. And this is one issue that absolutely no one is taking seriously. But I wanted to bring up another story also. Talk about how Goa has ranked third among smaller states in school education. And I don't know whether one should look at this as a positive sign, because, you know, three newspapers look at it in three different ways. The Times of India says Goa is among best small states in school education. The Herald, the Navin Times says Goa third in school education among small states, and Herald says Goa ranks third among smaller states. Now, if you look at the smaller states, they're talking about Tripura, Manipur, Meghalaya and Nagaland. So is that a great thing? Because we see ourselves in some ways as being ahead of these northeastern states in education and advanced in every other way. So are we doing well or are we not doing well?
Because per capita income wise we are on the top of all, but here we are only on the top of the small states.
Yes, exactly.
And the real test is whether our kids get jobs, whether they can, you know, make the most of it and get ahead with in a competitive world.
True.
Two quick stories I'd like to talk about. One is that a tourist was found dead in Kandoli, a lady tourist, and for some time at least they could not identify the lady.
Okay.
So that's quite a strange story. And then the other story, a bit of good news for vehicle buyers, potential vehicle buyers, is that the government plans to reduce road tax by 50% on new vehicle purchases to stimulate the economy, and hoping that people buy more, but only for a limited period of 3 months, I think.
Okay, but this is in line with the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitaram, who made the remark that, you know, the cars are not selling because millennials are using Uber, and, you know, she was the butt of so many sort of quips and jokes.
Only question is whether people would actually buy a vehicle if it's available for lower tax, or would they buy it because they need it. You know, the few thousands may or may not make a crucial.
I know this is supposed to be a stimulant to get people to buy cars and get the economy shaking, but I don't know whether it will work.
The government has also said that foreigners are to be barred from running Goa nightlife businesses. When I first read it, I had very mixed feelings, because yes, on the one hand they are coming here as tourists, they should not be indulging in businesses, but we cannot deny that some value has been added to the coastal belt by what these foreigners do, right from the flea markets to your night markets, which were started by foreigners, and your art bazaars, you know, your Flying Dutchman and things like that.
That's true.
So I don't know how it's perceived locally, but from a consumer point of view, it adds some variety in the market.
I'd like to bring to, you know, the general attention of our viewers about a story that really struck me. It was in the Navin Times, and it talks about this floating restaurant called Watermark, which is making a comeback in Panjim. But the you know, point here is the Watermark was operating in Panjim from earlier this year, and in fact in May it was inaugurated by the Chief Minister Pramod Sawant, and then there was a complaint saying that the whole thing was illegal. Even the pier that had been constructed had been done illegally, etc. And so an inspection was ordered, and before the whole thing could be inspected, suddenly the vessel vanished. It just melted away into the night. But the absolutely interesting factor of this is that the person who was running it with partners, of course, was Babu Asgaonkar's son. The tourism minister's son, Trivesh Asgaonkar, was actually running this, and he had no permissions, and now it's set to make a comeback, and Asgaonkar says that he will return and he has all the permissions, etc. But the paper is saying that sources, however, say that the captain of ports cannot grant no objection certificate to the applicant for if Asgaonkar fails to produce permissions from the Goa State Pollution Control Board and Goa Coastal Zone Management Authority. Does he have all these licenses? But the point to be made here is how people with influence can sort of just get away with doing these things for months together.
Devika, I think the point you're making is that if you read your papers carefully, you're very well informed, and as this journalist I.F. Stone used to say, you're better informed than both the CIA and the KGB put together. But I hope that readers also spend more time on reading their papers on the fine print, and of course we'll be back next week, 1 week from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.